This video is sponsored by Virtual Gladiators. Virtual Gladiators have everything you need to make your very own Minecraft or Hytale server. Click the link in the description to find out more.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Hycast, the premier Hytale podcast. I'm your host Fezzy, and today we're joined by Connor from Kweebec Corner. Welcome to the podcast. We're glad to have you with us.
Thank you for having me. Hi guys.
Hey, so of course, we're going to start this off as we usually do. If you could tell us a little about yourself and where you see yourself in the Hytale space.
Yeah, so we're not talking about Hytale. I'm usually working on remote games designing, project management, and YouTube channel stuff. So like marketing, assets, and brand management. But in terms of actual Hytale stuff within the community, I think I've got a lot of fingers in pies right now, so to speak. So there are so many things you can do, right? You know, like there's going to be machinimas, parodies, gameplay tutorials, mod making. I'm really intrigued in all of them, so I don't really want to nail down or define myself right now, if that makes sense.
That's fine. That's totally understandable. It does seem like you got a lot going for you, which is good to hear. So obviously this Hycast is coming out right after all of the new news dropped, and there's a lot to talk about, as everyone should hopefully know by now. There's like 4 new blog posts that came from the Hytale devs. What are your overall thoughts on them? And did you like anything that they've shown us? Like, out of what stands out to you?
Honestly, I'm relieved that we've actually got communication and actually heard something from them. You know, for the most part, my biggest worry was not the content that they were going to be revealing, but them actually revealing something to us and letting us know, you know, where they are in development. But in terms of what I was genuinely most curious about, the graphics was something that really perked my interest. The fact that it was so crisp, and the fact that they had the gameplay in there, and that had all the graphic stuff that they were talking about inside the gameplay. Like, I absolutely loved that. And, you know, all the other pictures are fun to look at, but at the end of the day, that's what got me.
Could you dive in a little deeper on that? Because we ran a poll on Twitter, and according to the votes we got, it seems like the blog post about graphics is actually one of the more popular ones. So what stood out to you about it? What do you think is what makes that so attractive?
So what most excites me about the graphics post is probably the water stuff. So
that's fair. We've
seen a few things about how like the water fills up blocks and sort of goes around them, and there's a bit of physics to that. But I like how that they've added reflections, right? And there's this sort of a level to the reflections, and I'm intrigued to see how the graphics will work with those in a bit more depth. You know, we see someone underwater, but will they, you know, have a swimming animation? Will there be bubbles when you dive in? You know, different things like that. That's what really gets me going, like things like water.
Yeah.
But
no, it makes sense. I mean, when we looked at the blog post, obviously the lighting has had a massive overhaul, and underwater specifically, it looks like the lighting going through the water reflecting on the character looked really good. So I can understand why people are excited for it, and I personally am too. So speaking on the blog post, what are your thoughts on the Hytale devs posting so many at the same time? Like, do you think this is an approach? Do you like this approach, or do you think it'd be better if they spread it out a little more?
I definitely don't like this approach. You know, if we were to say they were just going to start doing this every month, right? That'd suck, I personally feel like. To me, I feel like blog posts are supposed to be paced. You know, if you're going to do anything, it's supposed to be constantly updating the community. And if anything, this just feels kind of backlogged. Or not backlogged, but more just sort of, you know, they've had a few things going around, and now they've finally got it all, and then they're just going to offload it onto us. But then what do we get next week?
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense because I think they're at their best when they were consistent weekly. I think that was back when hype was at the highest, because people knew what to expect. They knew whenever a new blog post was going to come out, and a lot of people got excited around that time. But nowadays, you know, we go like a quarter of a year, we still don't know anything, and we get like maybe a tweet here and there like, sorry for being quiet. You know, it's going to be interesting seeing how they go future, because I know one of those blog posts was talking about them being more communicative with the community. So hopefully they make it a little more consistent moving forward. And we have to move quite a bit forward. We have a long time to wait, knowing now that Hytale has a set release date of 2021. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think the Hytale devs made the right decision selling it to us so late, or do you think it should have been something that happened a little earlier?
Honestly, I don't understand the backlash that the trailer got. I think at the end of the day, we all knew that Hypixel were a small studio. You know, we didn't even expect them to really be a studio. We still thought that they were back on the Minecraft servers, right? And so when they dropped this title, I think a lot of people got so excited, and, you know, people are coming off Terraria and Stardew Valley and all these incredible indie games that have had years and years of development, or, you know, even a few years at max. And then now they're expecting Hytale. The game's been in production for a few years, right? Which is great. And it means that they're ready to have something, right? It's not like they're in alpha stages in terms of like, there's no textures in the game, right? They've got something there. And I feel like them announcing it was them putting their foot down and saying, hey, we need to either generate interest or generate profit, right? We need to get like some partners in.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, we obviously know that they've kind of mentioned a little bit about the partnerships they've gotten. Obviously, Riot, that's been known for a long time. But I think it was in one of the new blog posts where they mentioned they've started to even get a little more connections, which is good to hear. So it lets you know that they're still invested. Even though it's a long time away, they're still invested and they're still working hard. And that's a good thing, because a lot of people didn't know for a long time, I think. There was a lot of disconnect in terms of what they were doing at the time. So it's good to hear. It's definitely good to hear. And speaking of the trailer and all the new information, do you expect anything big to happen? Because we're coming up on the anniversary of the trailer, obviously. December, we're here, and, you know, that's when the trailer came out last time. Do you think anything big is planned for its anniversary?
I was hoping that we'd have a blog post. So the fact that we got 4 means that now I can't even begin to predict. You know, I thought if they weren't going to put those blog posts out, then the anniversary would be the one, right? They'd put out maybe a blog post on the anniversary, or a little update, or maybe even a trailer, but I really doubt that, because people are already complaining about there being one trailer out there. So the last thing they're going to do is upload a second one, right? And have people be secondary hyped about it, and then wait another year till 2021 and be angry. I think the one thing that was problem was probably announcing there was going to be a beta. You know, I think it's great to get people excited, but that's something you do really have to announce sort of a bit closer to the time. But in terms of what they would announce now, they don't really have anything much left in the bag, I don't think. I mean, they've got a lot in the bag, but you know what I mean? I mean, they've mentioned the launch. They're not going to touch that back on that again. They've mentioned the beta, so they're not going to touch back on that again. And we've seen gameplay footage updated, so I'm not too sure what we'd want to see right now.
That's a fair point. Plus, you don't want them to spoil anything. There is that half of the argument where you don't want anything spoiled, because there's going to be, you know, there's two halves to it. We don't want too much revealed within the next year, because otherwise, you know, spoils, you know, and we also don't want too little, because that'll kind of drown out the hype. So I'm interested to see if they kind of find a fine-tuned balance between this. So next, we're going to dive into kind of Hytale's progress update. And in the Hytale progress blog, the devs had stated that they are going to start showing aspects of the game that are pretty early in development. Do you think this will be beneficial to the community, or will it lead to people getting upset when certain concepts are scrapped or maybe pushed?
I know it's going to get people excited, but yeah, that's the whole thing. Once something changes from what you were so excited about, you know, you're not excited anymore. The hype dies. The same thing happened with Cube World, as it became so alienated from what the audience originally wanted that it became a completely different game, right? In terms of mechanics. And so people they weren't looking for that. But that's because they had no hands-on changing and feedback. But so it's a very close balance, you know, between a system that's in development for a couple of months. You post about it to your audience lets you know the kinks and the things that aren't necessarily working well and the things that are well, and you go back and redo it. But there's a point then where you're trying to please everyone and you're redoing it now on your 10th time redoing it. The game was supposed to be out in 2021, it's 2030, you know, you're going to be old soon. It's like, they're going to have to figure out a system where it's a bit of a balance.
Yeah, that's fair. And we've been shown, so just moving along, we've been shown 2 new biomes, and those being the Autumn Forest and the Oasis that have recently been added to the World Generation Hytale. Do you think this adds more variety? Because something you mentioned is that a lot of, you know, seeing things in progress means that a lot of things are going to get changed. So I actually have another question that kind of goes along with this. Do you think things like that add variety, or do you think people are going to be let down, say, if the Autumn Forest gets changed too much? Because I know you mentioned that, and we obviously don't want anything to get. We don't want, like we said, we don't want to get pushed to like 2030 and everyone's already old. So do you think it would be better to kind of take it how they've been, making things finished before releasing it? Or do you think adding extra biomes and stuff quicker and trying to get the game out quicker is better than waiting and kind of getting community feedback along with that?
That's a tough one. I think obviously getting things out quicker it's probably great for the devs to not have to worry about it so much, but at some point then you're going to have a cluttered game. And I think there's a mod out there in Minecraft right now that adds like 110 different biomes. Like, I'm not going to possibly... I don't think... Honestly, I'll put it out there. I don't think on my Minecraft right now I have the achievement to have gone into all... I think it's 17 biomes right now. So to think... Imagining of having 100 on offer and then walking around and they'll be randomized each time and they're always different. And each one has to stand out. And each one has to have its own unique things and unique models and textures and lighting and ambience. And at some point it might be way too much, right? Because people are also talking about performance. You know, is performance going to be great when you're loading in 100 different types of a block because it's in 100 different types of a biome? So honestly, I know it's a, sort of like a cheapskate answer, but I'm not really sure on this one.
Okay, that's fair. Do you think so to throw like a third option at you, do you think it'd be better if they had like a base set of biomes to start and then added extra later?
In fact, yeah, that's actually a really good idea. So if they started with something iconic and then they slowly started adding things in, even did something like Mojang with the community vote, you know, the Hytale could completely do that right now. They have a great community, and I'm sure if they posted a video showcasing 4 different biomes, that would drive up some retention and feedback, and people would get excited about that.
Very true. So moving along, we're going to hop into some of the systems that the game has to offer, particularly farming, because this was brought up recently in the new blog post, and it's a really important part of Hytale. And it's been the focus of the developers for the past few months, we can kind of guess. Based on what we know, what do you think about the farming system, and do you expect it to differ much from how Minecraft works? Because it's a little rudimentary in Minecraft, so...
Yeah, I think when it comes to growing things in Minecraft, you're relatively stuck to just, I guess, stages, you know? In terms of what we've seen from Hytale, though, you know, they're not just stages, but they're also heights, and there seems like different sizes. Like, I know that's kind of like stages, but it could be that I think I've seen some plants growing bigger in some places than others, right? So their literal scale can be randomized, which I think is really cool. That's sort of, I imagine that's brought on from Stardew Valley, where you can make bigger and better food. And so that's one thing that I'm super excited about. The second thing that I'm super excited about is one of the screenshots that we got in the blog post, which had, I think it's a watering can item. So it wasn't just the item, but it was on a desk, like a wheelbarrow. And so that's a whole thing. So I assume that's a farming station, which I'm going to go ahead and categorize that with like crafting benches and cooking stations, right? So if you have an entire farming station, we know that they're dedicating a lot of time to getting this right. And to get farming right in a survival game, I think you guys spoke about it, I believe, on the Hytale Roundup table recently. And you touched on it there. You know, it's very tricky to get someone to play a game and not have to farm, but want to farm.
Exactly. And Minecraft kind of fails to do both. You don't really want to farm. You don't even need to. You can just kind of walk around killing animals as you go. I definitely want to see farming kind of reimagined, I guess, in Hytale, kind of pushed forward, because farming can be cool. It can be fun. Like you mentioned, there are games that are designed for it. I mean, I think it can be great, and I'm interested to see where it goes. Now, of course, with better plant farming comes better animal domestication. It appears livestock will function quite differently from Minecraft and include animal happiness systems. Do you expect the system to be vital when dealing with livestock, or simply optional and provide a boost in efficiency?
So I've thought about the mood system in terms of just general mobs and stuff, but I've never really thought about it about farming. So, I mean, I think it will probably have something to do with production rate. So if you've got 3 or 4 mobs there, like a chicken, a cow, you know, if you're feeding them and treating them well, you're going to get more milk, you're going to get more eggs, or they're going to be bigger, or they're going to taste better, or they're going to have a bonus effect on them. I feel like something to do with how you treat the pet is going to obviously impact your gameplay and help you. I think it's not going to be a necessity. Like, if you treat the animals bad, I don't think that's a problem. You're just a bad person and you're not going to get a bonus from that. Or maybe they'll even go the route of giving you a bonus for being bad. It's just a bad bonus. Like a debuff or something, or maybe a debuff or a bonus that can be, you know what I mean, kind of like a morale system.
Yeah.
But it's to be seen whether they want to do morale or more over just, you can be kind if you want to, and if you are, you get benefits. So, you know, if you pet a dog, it's happy. If you feed it, if you take it for a walk, you know, it's you could go in so many ways, and it could be broken down in so many different forms for like each animal. It's hard to tell which ones they're really going to stick to, but I think those farmyard ones are going to be the ones where we see the most mood and care for, I think.
Right. And, you know, we've seen a lot more mobs in Hytale, and a new undead creature alongside like 2 dinosaurs, which appear to be some sort of raptor or like a baby triceratops. So I want to hear your thoughts on these creatures, where you think Hytale's taking its mobs, and if you think that like mentality, that happiness, that mood system will apply to hostile mobs in some ways, as well as just kind of your general opinion on where Hytale's taking mobs.
Well, I think that was always the thing with Minecraft, was that we had you know, real life animals in the game, and they were the base mobs. They were non-hostile, like the pigs, the sheep, you know. And then they added hostile mobs that were completely obscure and that we didn't understand, right? I mean, obviously you've got the zombie and the skeleton, but then if you think about any other hostile Minecraft mob, it's ridiculous. Like a zombie pigman, a ghast, an elder guardian, like what? Like they're all things that aren't relatively in this world. But I feel like Hytale are trying to take that on both sides. So they've got things that are from this world, good and bad, but they've also got ridiculous things on every side as well. And I feel like this is just something you generally pick up in games design, is you'll have a good idea, but it doesn't fit here, right? And so I'm sure so many of the Hypixel team members have had ideas for mini games and different types of game and features, and they've just sort of dotted it in to Hytale now that they've had the chance. So I feel like some mobs will be like that. Some mobs might be callbacks to other mobs, like that zombie mob that was revealed. I feel like that kind of had an undead World of Warcraft character vibe going on. And with the animals in the caves, even, they reminded me kind of Ungoro Crater, which is a zone in World of Warcraft. But I mean, yeah, I feel like that's what's going to make up the components of the mobs. It's going to be real life things, some more ridiculous things like glow in the dark dinosaurs, and then
yeah. That's fair. I think that's a good way to approach it. That way it feels familiar but new. Like, you know, you can understand how some of the basic stuff works. But then the further you go, it's like, you know, you run into a glow-in-the-dark dinosaur and you're like, well, okay, this is not what I'm used to. I think it could be some interesting game experiences. So moving along here. Obviously, like we mentioned earlier, the graphics update. It's a big deal. And in the blog, we were shown a set of new graphical features with some of these even working on like Intel GPUs, like integrated graphics. What do you think Hytale's performance will be like in comparison to Minecraft, even with these more intensive lighting systems?
I think it will be better. No, honestly, it's really hard to tell. But obviously it will be better. You know, they're not going to drop a game that's worse than Minecraft in any way. But I think the thing they're going to have when it comes to graphics is versatility. I feel like they're going to enable us to turn pretty much everything on and off, kind of like Minecraft did. I don't know how, you know, new that was to gaming. I know that graphics options have always been a thing. It's kind of rudimentary to games. But the way that, you know, you can choose your render distance and smooth, fancy, fast lighting and stuff like that, I feel like that's all just going to come naturally with Hytale. Things like optifine zoom, you know, optimized lighting, all that stuff is just going to become bundled into it because it's become what we've expected. So what I'm trying to imagine is what Hytale looks like when being played is probably nothing like what it will end up looking like, because all I can imagine is the best of what we've got right now. And while Hytale's probably already conquered all those curves, it's going to have a bunch more things in a year's time that I can't even, you know, begin to assume working right now. Personally, I love the sun shafts. Like that shot when it's going through the boreal trees and some of the sun shafts are just caught on the camera. That's what got it for me. That's what made me think I am gonna make so many machinimas here.
Yep, absolutely. I feel you on that. Now, obviously, with the sun shafts and all that, it is written on more modernized code, but it is also a bit more of an intense lighting system. So which of those features that we know right now, maybe not like speculating into the future, do you think would work on like an APU right now? So while still being able to reach like a reasonable like 30 FPS, which is playable enough.
See, I don't think Sunshafts will. I hard to see Bloom being that way as well. And then when we're talking about all the water stuff that they've added, things like having a mass body of water, how is the reflections going to handle? How is it going to handle when you spawn in a massive body of water and then it goes and does all these crazy new physics that they've loaded in? Have they tried doing 1,000 blocks of TNT yet? Like things like that are where the lighting engine's going to really be pushed to its limits. I think I don't know again too much of the technical stuff to say what features wouldn't be into it, but I think they're going to try their best to package as much as they can into an integrated playable version for everyone.
Yeah, and that's fair. I think you're probably on the nose with that. But let's now talk about exceeding what we know, like what Hytale might be coming with. So perhaps one of the biggest features that we were shown in the graphical blog post was cascaded shadow mapping. Do you think custom shaders will, like in Minecraft, will still be a thing for Hytale, or do you think they've made kind of more obsolete by Hytale's lighting system and real-time shadows?
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I don't think that the need will be there instantly anymore. I don't think the need ever really was there in Minecraft until like a couple of years on, and people started seeing other games and playing other things, and it sort of just became a really needed update that still hasn't happened and only is just happening now. With Hytale, I don't think the worry will be there. I don't think people will be overly concerned with creating shaders as much as there are all the possible mod packs and texture packs and stuff. I think that'll be like something that comes in way later on down the line, unless it is the case that they launch with a lot less of these ambient features and, the cascading shadows and whatnot.
That's fair. And we touched on this a little bit earlier. Obviously, gameplay. There was some gameplay that came with the blog posts, and the animator, Ninja Charlie T, was taking on a dungeon quest. And I want to hear your opinion on what you think of this clip overall. What were some of the tiny details you saw, and what do you think like of the combat system that we've seen?
So right off the bat, I want to say that the knockback stuff's really cool. The way that he knocks back the skeleton, bumps back, cascades into the other, stealing your word there, but cascades into the other skeleton and sort of bounces off. I thought that was really cool. It did. At first I thought it killed the second skeleton as well, which I thought was OP, but it turns out the other player was just sort of flanking them. People have been discussing the mob AI. I think it's very simple right now, but I think that's also just part of them testing. Like they had a bunch of items, it's going to have to be balanced and playtested thousands of times before we ever get to see that in the actual game. So I feel like we can't say too much about it right now, but if it does work on the case of, an aggro system where you can have threat level and people go and you can flank mobs, that would be a next level for, I guess, block-based survival games for sure. Because right now it works in Minecraft as just radius. And if you could be within a radius of a mob but not have the threat level to draw its attention, that's like a whole new thing that could be installed into not just regular adventure maps, but mini games as well. You could make so many cool features from that.
So we saw a little bit of the combat system, very, very small amount. So if you, from what you've seen, which I mean, isn't that much, what would you suggest? What would you change?
Well, I like what I would keep is the red crosshair stuff that shows up, your damage indicators. Presuming there's an option to probably turn them off, but there's actually a way that you can see a flat line for when an arrow hits you and a bigger line for when you're just hit by regular physical stuff. So it'll be really intriguing to see how that sort of evolves over time with like taking spell damage or taking a certain type of damage. Something I would remove from the combat, something I'm not necessarily intrigued about or overly excited for. The spell books feel a bit gimmicky. I really like them and they seem really cool, and I'm sure that they've got a lot more work to be done on them. But they also feel a bit gimmicky, pulling a spell out of a book and shooting it, and then the other guy across the room, the skeleton, had a staff and was shooting like the same ball of magic. Like, I mean, are those two magics the same strength? Are they different? Like, we need to know some more details about that stuff before we can really get into all the different weapon types and classes and stuff.
That's fair. So, quick warning, we're heading into the speculation territory now. Assuming Hytale doesn't release earlier than like 2021, when do you expect the actual beta to drop? And what type of beta do you expect? Like an open beta, kind of a closed beta? Which are you thinking?
So I think that they're probably going to do a private beta session with their close friends, any close people of the company. They mentioned, I think Dan TDM, Squid, a few other YouTubers mentioned back about a year ago they got to see sort of a preliminary version of the game. So I assume the reason they were doing that is because they were probably doing a round of investments, or maybe trying to put them in the trailer or record something with them. But I feel like they're going to do something similar like that. Probably around halfway through 2020, they'll probably start doing some like more privatized testing, and then they'll drop it to the public, or maybe to a smaller amount of people, right? And they'll give out the codes to all those people that signed up in 2018. So beta publicly, I'd expect to be, I think Livid Lion said this as well, the third quarter or fourth quarter of 2020.
Okay, that's a fair speculation. So you mentioned, content creators getting it a little early. What about server developers? Like, do you think they'd get access early, or do you believe that certain worthy servers would be able to get anything, or how do you think it would be for server developers?
See, while it's a fine line, I understand why giving it to creators or say like press early is beneficial, because then you're getting, the game advertised a bit more. But when it comes to servers and stuff, I'm not too sure, because if you're giving early access, then you're giving people leverage in an economy that hasn't even started yet, right? And that can be really dangerous if someone monopolizes and say becomes the next Hypixel of Hytale, which would, in the first month, which would be really bad. That would actually be like a hindrance to them as well. So it's actually unsure. They always say that competition brings, improvements and stuff. If you're, constantly competing with other people, you're going to do better to one-up them. But I don't think that anything too crazy like that should be released early. Personally, I feel like the one thing they should release is the model maker. Because like, if we've seen interest for anything over anything, it's the models. So many people are doing models right now. Hytale model of this, Hytale model of that.
Yeah,
I think if they had the model maker and just even a few assets to play around with, that would keep them busy for so long. And they could prepare as well.
Yeah. Yeah, there would definitely be a lot of models for custom game modes being made before the game's even out, which would be kind of cool to see. So obviously, this is the big one for the night. We've been told it's 2021. When do you expect it to be released in 2021?
I've not actually thought about this. That's how much of a dream it is to me right now. So
understandable.
In my videos, I've been saying spring 2021. That was sort of like the maximum goal I had in mind for where they'd push it to, and that's right about where they've mentioned. So, they said 2021, so don't misquote me on that. But I think spring might be the one, because if it's late 2021, we're waiting 2 years. That's ridiculous. It sort of doesn't make any sense when they were ready to practically launch the game in 2019. So I feel like maybe April, March, sometime then, maybe on my birthday. But who knows? Just spring.
Cool. Well, with all that said, that's all the questions we had for you today. If there's anything else you want to say, socials, anything, feel free to do so right now.
Sure thing. You can catch me on Twitter at Kweebec Corner, where I do monthly art competitions for Hytale fan art and things like that. And you can catch me on YouTube. My username is Kweebec Corner. So if you need me at any time, just feel free to shoot me a tweet or a DM or ask me a question, and I'll be there to explain.
Yeah. And once again, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. And make sure to follow Kweebec Corner on Twitter. All of his links, including his Twitter and YouTube, will be down below. Thank you guys for tuning in to this week's podcast. And make sure you all subscribe if you'd like to see and hear more. This has been your host, Fezzy the Frog, and we'll see y'all next time.